decided, you know what, I've dabbled in indie games. I'm going to give this one last shot.
Let's just make a game.
It felt like jumping into the deep end.
I realized that making games is like a real thing that you can do.
It's just so, that's the word, is liberating.
We owned this project.
We just want to make a fun game.
Hello, my name is Kayla Flandell and I'm a solo indie game dev, and I'm working on a game called Mealtime, which is a cottagecore adventure game about delivering meal to forest animals. When I got into my second year of art school, I had a friend that was really into games and was already planning to make games and just somehow roped me into doing that. And there was something about the combination of the technical and the art that was really appealing to me. And then I found that I actually really liked making games, and I have only made games since. Then Mealtime was my graduation project that spiraled out of control and is now this. I think quite a big thing for thesis projects, specifically in art schools, is that there's just a lot of pressure, and they really want you to make something that's incredibly artistic with deep meaning and societal values. And I felt very overwhelmed by that, so I decided to do the exact opposite and try to find a game that I could make just based on whatever I want. Just be cute and kind of be this little escape to work on. I always describe Mealtime in one sentence as a cottagecore adventure game about delivering mail to forest animals. You play as this little mail scout, which is kind of this mail delivery company. And it's your very first delivery and you have no clue what's going on. The letters are really quite big because you're a really small character, and you can hold them and you can glide around with them as if they're a parachute. So you have a lot of movement freedom around the game to find hidden things and find maybe more characters to talk to. And so I kind of like encouraging game breaking behavior because I think it can be really fun and it's a certain way to play a game. So why not let people do that? I think people really connect with that kind of cozy feeling and the safety of exploration, and then having this game that kind of says all right, we'll just create a space where you can explore and you can do these things and you can discover these characters, and it's kind of a really comforting and exciting space. That Mealtime is really inspired by children's books and whimsical fairy tale type things. I have this color palette that that does change and expand a little bit, but there's a basic color palette that I draw from. What's quite distinctive of the art style is the lines on all of the different models. Working on my own means that if I stop working, nothing gets done. If I'm stuck, the game's just stuck. There's nothing happening. But when it moves forward, it's super exciting and really fulfilling. It's just going to be me, my brother, the writer, and then the music composer. And it's just going to be us three. We're actually expanding it and making it better and bigger. And I want to make more cute games. So I think this is kind of a landmark for me, hopefully, to be the first of a bunch of games that are so cute and so fun.
We're really trying to give something to the gamer, as in we try to make a game how we want a game to be. Day one was just me fiddling around with some engines, and after a year or so it was over my head and I had too many ideas, and I started looking around for friends. So that's when I found Marcel. He worked at the local supermarket, same as me. He wasn't in my regular friend group, but both of us were very into the retro games. These were our favorites, and I remember just talking about those games around the job on occasion, and that's how it all started. We didn't really envision it this big from the beginning, but we started to raise our own bar and eventually started putting in money and a lot of our time into the development. Through the time, we ended up with different monster designers, different skill designers, different map designers, UI designers, and it was us, Marcel and me, keeping the vision in line and guiding all of the employees to create a consistent art style. We try to combine a lot of different elements from different games and give it a unique touch. Through time, we really saw the need to differentiate and also come with new ideas, new concepts, new mechanics, and a completely different storyline. We try to look at every decision ever made and just rethink, do we want to do something similar? Do we want to do it completely different? Coromon is set in a futuristic world, and it's really going to take you through a lot of emotions. You're going to meet a lot of characters, a lot of interesting Coromon designs. We introduced a lot of new mechanics, bigger bosses, which have multiple phases, have extreme power, which really require a new kind of strategy compared to other Monster Hunter games. Our Coromon have a mechanic called potential, which makes them appear in 3 different collectible colorizations. It's a whole new experience in the Monster Hunter genre, I think. A shout out to our community. They helped us translate the demo. They helped us get out the word. The demo has been played over 1 million times. I think that's because of the mindset we're making this game in. We try to think, how would a gamer go through this and what would he like? I think that's the reason why we resonate with the community that much. It's just great to get a community like that. They helped us make Coromon what it is.
I was, working with my family business, doing business management. And I got to a point where, I can't do this office work because this isn't what I want to do with my life, or it just didn't feel, fulfilling enough. So I took a step back from that, went back to school and decided to, pursue game development and give that a shot and give that a try. Actually, that's how my team was formed too. We all went to the same school and we all worked together on the student project. It was fun to make and it was a great learning experience, but it wasn't really a game that we wanted to make. So we moved on and really sat down and really focused in on the game we want to create, which we got to where we are today with Sands of Aura. Sands of Aura is an open world action RPG, and it's set in this decaying world we call Talamel. And Talamel is riddled with, sand and dust due to an ancient spell that turned everything into an entropic ruin. While the players are playing this game, they are given full control to fully customize the way they want to play with a variety of fighting styles and literally thousands of weapon combinations to tackle on different enemies and bosses they encounter throughout the world. The thing I'm most proud of that our team created was this weapon creation system. We don't care if the item that you end up creating is completely broken and it breaks every single boss fight we have. We want the players to be able to find that and have fun with that. And I think that's something that, it's kind of missing in a lot of different types of games. You want to be able to create these, really janky or broken builds, or even just try something completely different that you haven't really seen in games, or even just blow our mind as developers away. We have never thought that somebody could do this with our creation system. I think everybody that's played video games want and feel like they can design a game. They play a game I can do this, right? But then once you actually jump into it and you learn all about the intricate parts of it, the programming, the art, the animation, the cinematics, the UI, user experience, all these different elements to make a game, you don't think about it, when you're just playing it. But when you're making it, you have to understand how all these pieces work to create something amazing that players enjoy. And that was the challenge. The best thing about my team is that we push each other really hard. Every time somebody comes out with a new art concept or a new animation for something, we're actively critiquing it and just pushing each other to do better and better. We want to do the best that we can so that we as a group can do really well and continue living this dream of just making video games.
Talamel is in its twilight. The sands have buried its kingdoms. Corruption unburies its subjects. From such bountiful seeds, this world has reaped only entropy, chaos, and night. And though the secrets of Talamel's ruination are entombed below the sea of sand, it's a truth that will not rest.
I'm from a really rural town. So is Tanner, the other lead developer on the game. We both grew up together in the same 500 population Arkansas town. The two of us, the two lead devs, we live together. We're partners. So we've been together since middle school, I guess. Yeah. I am definitely one of those people who played games all growing up, and both of us were really passionate about it. He was one of the first people I ever met that actually wanted to have these interesting conversations about the design of games and stuff like that. We went to college here also in Arkansas, and we tried out some projects, and actually To the Rescue started as one of our sort of undergrad, like, hey, let's see if we can actually make a game just as a hobby thing, just to try it out. That's sort of how the project started. To the Rescue is where you play as somebody working in a dog shelter and taking on all the responsibilities that entails, but also getting to know all of the unique dogs so that you can take care of them and find the right homes for them. Having that moment of the dog that it's not very cute, it's old, and you've been trying to get it adopted forever, but then that one person comes and it's the right person and takes them away. Like that moment, I want to be the most memorable thing for people when they play the game. We thought it was a cool idea because we hadn't seen one before, a game like this. And yeah, we just felt like it was a lot of potential, and we were really surprised no one else was doing it. And we just felt like if we were going to pick a project, this is one that felt really marketable and might help us get on our feet and stand out a little bit, especially not having the big community to sort of help uplift us. There's no companies, right? There's no video game companies in Little Rock or the state of Arkansas. So we decided to just jump off the deep end and be like, hey, let's try and just be the first. Little Rock Games is just 5 people. In this project, within Little Rock Games, it's just Tanner and I, delegating tasks to each other and also giving feedback to each other and also being in a relationship with each other. And yeah, so having really that and sort of inherent support structure has been really important from my perspective. Oh, my special guest star appeared in the background. People love dogs so much, but this is also about raising awareness, right? It's both of those things. We heard a lot of positive feedback just to the core concept, right? Yeah, it is sort of escapism, getting to do this without having to face the realities yourself, but we're also not pretending those realities aren't there. Is in the game, there's diseases that can appear in the shelter. It's dirty, and adopters only want the cutest puppies, and they don't want the old dogs. And we do feature euthanasia as an element in the game. It's completely optional, but it's there. So essentially, I just want people to walk away with more knowledge about the things we're representing. And I feel like there's a lot of room in sim management games to explore the real world in more nuanced ways. So it is important for us to find that balance of wanting people to be able to experience this dog management, but also not being able to completely ignore the fact that real people have to do these jobs. It's resonated with a lot more people than we expected it to, and we've gotten a lot of people that work in real shelters that are like, I'm glad that you're doing this, because a lot of people don't realize how hard the work is and how thankless it is. So 20% of every dollar that Little Rock Games makes from this game is going to be going to the Pet Finder Foundation. The game is about being hopeful that you can improve your community in some small way.
I've always thought that I would be good at making video games. My mom just sent me a picture of a drawing I did when I was like 8, titled My Own Game. Basically a Mario level that I had drawn up myself. Grown up with games, I always loved them. I really wanted to make my own studio. And I realized that's like not really super realistic. It was kind of like wanting to be, a football star. I was diagnosed with Asperger's autism as a child, and I basically kind of just told myself, there's no way I could be in management. It's a social disorder where you have difficulty analyzing social situations. So I kind of just assumed that because of that quote unquote disadvantage that I had, I couldn't do it, that I couldn't compete with other people. In part because of a label. And the label was helpful. It helped me recognize the problem and how to overcome it. But I needed to understand that it wasn't the end all be all. Through therapy as a child and then continuing through college, my own efforts on my own to finish my own development and learning, I overcame it. Many things you can overcome with enough effort. It'll take a lot of time and a lot of effort. It took me 28 years. That was when I decided, I've dabbled in indie games. I'm going to give this one last shot before I'm 40. I was like, it has to get done. That's the most important thing. What's most satisfying and makes me happiest is that now I'm doing my dream, doing something I thought I couldn't do. We just want to make a fun game, and we want people to look at it and think that looks fun. And all through this process, I had 2 kids. I'm proud to say that my oldest son, who is now 4, finally beat the first 2 levels of the original Kirby. Yes. The other cool thing about this is I've been able to actually involve my wife. My wife has actually written 3 novels. And so I was like, you know what? Why don't you write for our game? We have a worldwide team. We have people in like 10 countries, I think. US, Canada, Brazil, Portugal, England, Scotland, Germany, Italy, Russia, and Singapore. What brings me a lot more satisfaction, and maybe this is because I've had kids, is seeing everything just come together into this sum that is greater than something I could have possibly made by myself. Finding all the right talented people to bring their ideas and their creativity and vision into the project, which is not something I necessarily even thought of going into it. Through this process, I've really learned how valuable people are. There's 20 people on the team. I'm just one of them. The 3D artists, the 2D artists, the programmers, all of them have been invaluable. It would not be here today if it wasn't for that. And I'm hoping to convey some of that through the game's narrative. You have to have growth and you have to have progress. So for us, loneliness drives you to push forward in the game. And it also helps highlight the value of connection, friendships, and interpersonal dynamics. And it's something that I thought became fairly prescient with the onset of the COVID lockdowns. people kind of underestimated the idea of loneliness when they were actually faced with it, when they were actually isolated from each other. A lot of people seem to realize, oh, wait, we can't just hole up in our houses and feel fulfilled. If I was to say there was any kind of a goal with One Lonely Outpost that I'm hoping for people to get out of it that's greater than just a fun game, it's maybe being able to reflect a little bit on what community means to them.
I had lived in Kyoto for a while where I'd gone to a cat cafe, and it was such a surreal experience for me at the time when I was handed a business card, a cat's business card, for a cat called Nico. So we were making management games, right? That's what our experience was. So I thought, like, this seems like such a cool idea for a management game. So we sat down and we prototyped Cat Cafe Manager.
It's a foggy Thursday here in the Netherlands, and it is a normal work day for us here at Roost Games. And for me, that usually starts with making my morning coffee.
Roost Games is a 4-person Dutch, like, little indie studio that we formed a little over a year ago. All of us live in the same town here in the Netherlands. It's a town called Utrecht, medieval little town. It's really beautiful. I could literally get on my bike and bike to any of them. We have board game nights together. That's why I have this big pile of board games behind me. And we play video games together, and we just hang out a lot as well. Not these days, but we used to.
Just get a little work done in the morning, then go out into town on my bike, meet 2 of my co-workers for lunch, I'm really looking forward to that because it's been a while.
It's been a strange year. Like starting a studio in 2020 was a weird experience because me and Rutger got to working together like in person for only a little bit before we had to go into lockdown. And from that point on, it was a lot of figuring out like, how do we do this? A thing that we found after a couple of months working is that we would just not be talking about Cat Cafe Manager. Like we'd be talking about the work we were doing, but not about like the game itself and how it made us feel, our hopes and wishes for the game, where we saw it moving. So we started doing this thing like at least once every month where we just talk about the game talk. And that's been super valuable to us.
All right, so I'm now biking to go hang out with Rutger and Carmen for a little bit, eat a sandwich, maybe talk about the game, maybe not, we'll see. Well, if it isn't Rutger. Goedemorgen.
Hallo.
I don't know, there's like a thing about the team that is very important to us, which is that we are effectively a co-op. Previously, like working for studios, we always felt that, you know, there's a lot of camaraderie that comes through making games, and we would really like to see that be reflected in the way that we treat everybody that works at Roost Games. We make sure that everybody essentially receives an equal financial cut of whatever we do. And we feel like that sort of allows people to bring themselves into the process and into the game so much more, and like really add their own sort of passion. So that's been like super freeing for me, and I think for everybody else at Roost Games. I'm actually quite happy with how we've been able to put everything that we find important pretty centrally in the game. When you're petting a cat, I don't know what it is, like endorphins that are being released, like the good feeling that you get from that we kind of wanted to put in the game. There's something inherently relaxing about taking care of this adorable animal that is both at your whims and incredibly like defiant of you. Every cat that we have in the game is like a unique cat with their own personality. So we're always looking for, you know, people that have cats. Like if I'm visiting someone that has a cat, I'm like, okay, what kind of a cat is this? Actually, I don't think any of our team members have cats. So maybe that is the reason that we're making a Cat Cafe Manager game. It's very much a game about building your own little space and then filling it with the kind of furniture that you like, and the people that you like as well, and the cats, most importantly, that you like. We live in a time that's like pretty stressful and out of control in a lot of ways. So for us, it's very important that you sort of get a cozy feeling when you get introduced to the game. You will always want a little bit of challenge and tension, but we're looking for like a good equilibrium between chill and challenging. Finding the right kinds of furniture that you like, and adopting stray cats, caring for them, naming them, and sort of figuring out what their personality is. You can sort of always keep making progress, designing your cafe and adopting more cats, and making friends also. Just making the cat cafe of your dreams.
I'm an indie game developer from Indonesia, and the game industry in Indonesia is still relatively new. And at the time when I started, there was only a web forum. And the thing about Indonesian is that game dev is not a main career. People usually want to be a doctor or architect. It's something that's absurd for our previous generation. I spent a lot of time in that forum and eventually found some friends, talk a lot about video games, and then just interact with each other. And then just one day we decided to make a simple shooter game, and then we just keep making games. Uncharted is an action RPG about restoring fallen civilization. You play as a bell-wielding character that goes into dungeon to retrieve souls of missing villagers, and also rebuilding the town throughout the game. We basically love retro games, especially 16-bit and 32-bit era. I think that was the era when we still had the excitement of a child, but also old enough to appreciate the game design. So we want to recreate that kind of experience to modern players. So it's like a retro experience, but with modern feel. We put a lot of care into designing different enemy patterns, different obstacles, and also different kind of puzzles that you will encounter. Every level has a unique gimmick, and you can also connect enemies to jars, destructible objects. The thing that I'm really happy about Uncharted is the combat design and also the enemy design. Just seeing the characters move and interact with each other is really rewarding to me. I think it's mostly about the old school game that we miss the style, so we put a lot of care in the development.
Nine Years of Shadows is a Metroidvania. So it's this action adventure exploration game. You get to explore a big setting and you get power-ups that allow you to move and fight in different and interesting ways. Although it's all sort of an excuse to tell this very important story that comes out of depression and overcoming it. I've always been into creative arts and narrative. When I was in film school, I was actually creating this script as a homework assignment, and it was a very sad story. I didn't realize I was writing about myself at the time. It's about depression and very emotional, deep stuff. We created this company, which is called Halbert Studios, that creates animation and films, advertisement, things like that. And when we had a bit of money saved, we said like, okay, advertisement is okay, but we actually want to do like creative stuff, right? So what should we do? And I had that story from 2013. And so I said, you know what, like, let's do something with this. I'm also a very big video game fan, and we had animators and we had artists, and we knew a bit about that pipeline. And so it wasn't a plan, but we managed to transform our everyday job into let's make something that we are proud of and that is ours. You know, music plays a big role. Back in the day, when I was really, really down, feeling down, like I remember Castlevania being one of the soundtracks that uplift me the most. Like it made me feel a lot better listening to that soundtrack. And it was funny because when I met the composer, Michiru Yamane, I told her that story, and she's actually composing part of the soundtrack because of it. The composer from Metal Gear is also doing a track, and Manami Matsumai, the composer from Mega Man, is also doing a track. So music is very important for me and for the game. We try to include it as much as possible in the gameplay and the mechanics, and so that's, I think, one of the highlights. We have this musical thing with the bosses. So boss fights are musical, and we try to implement that as deep as possible. So you can almost hear what the boss is doing, their rhythms, their attacks and stuff like that. The music will be something to look out for. There's also this analogy with light. So as a DP, I used to excel a bit more in terms of the visual part of it. Visual language became such an interesting thing for me. There's some element of respect to that. You know, Light is such an interesting character to the story. The essential element in a Metroidvania is to explore. You need to make exploring interesting. You know, making these elemental armors for the main character was such a big part of it. You get to move and fight in different ways. Fire, earth, and water are 3 different ways of moving towards the castle. And in a Metroidvania, it makes a lot of sense because you tend to visit the same place more than once. And so if that place, now you can move differently through those rooms, and then it becomes, you know, more interesting. And so that strategy of changing your suit on the fly is just something that I think it's fun. You can expect weird stuff to happen in the game. It's just not your traditional Metroidvania, a game that's about mental health problems. That is a very important message. That's why this project exists, for this message. A cinematographer wrote a script, and then it became a company, and the company ended up doing video games. So it's just a mess of a story, but I think that's life.
I first started getting into games probably about 7 or 8 years old. I was always kind of like tinkering around with game engines. They never really went anywhere until about maybe 15 or 16, where I started putting games on the web, so like Flash games and things like that. I then studied a degree in game development, and then I've just been kind of putting out little mobile games here and there, just really simple tap-based games. But it wasn't challenging. I mean, it come a point where I wanted to stretch myself a little bit with the games I was creating. I always liked the idea of really silly deaths, characters getting blown to bits in like a cartoony way. The thing with most games is when you die, it's usually an area of frustration. But when you can see your character's head just flying off and blood's going everywhere, it's like you just got nothing but humor there.
It's sure gonna feel bad in the morning.
So I come up with the idea of having like a Ninja Warrior / Total Wipeout death competition, and that was Slaughter League. So the last Flash game I made was in like 2014, and there's still people speedrun it to this day. So I got chatting to those guys about sort of what features they think are really important for speedrunning. I thought, well, if you guys are still enjoying, you know, what I made 6, 7, 8 years ago, then I might as well tailor as many features as I can towards these guys too. One of the pillars of Slaughter League in itself is that it's built with the same design philosophies as I'd take into a Flash game. We want to be what we know and be the best at that. For me, the thing with Slaughter League where it kind of breaks expectation is the amount of content that's going to be there. From your sort of standard small little platform indie game, you might get a single player mode, or you might get multiplayer racing, or you might sometimes get a stage builder. It's even more rare, but you'll never get all 3 in one. We're kind of offering the level of content as a AAA developer, but with an indie game. We've been working a lot on the stage builder side of things. And what that's going to let players do is not just build stages, but build game modes. It will basically make other games within Slaughter League. Players can kind of build their own collectibles and build their own puzzle maps or build their own races, zombie maps, whatever it might be. We want to give them as many tools as possible to achieve as many different creations as possible, essentially. So that's something I'm hugely excited about. It as a developer to think there might be, some of the younger audience who don't quite understand programming, they don't quite understand 3D modeling, but they can build a level and be proud of that and send that to their friends, share that with the world. We're kind of hoping the creatives have an outlet. The thing is, we're making games is there's so many moving parts to it. You've got, like I say, the 3D art, you've got the menus, the things that you don't really consider. This was my first 3D game. The mobile games before this were all 2D based, and that was a skill set I never had. Some of the code I built early on was the kind of stuff you'd have for a blog. Josh, the back-end guy, he just laughed. He was like, "This, as soon as you launch this, will just fall apart." I was like, "Oh no." It worked fine for like 10 of us. There's like 10 of us playing. It was enough to sustain that. But if we was to get a big launch with this old code, it would just set on fire. I started it with just one laptop. It's pretty much it.
You built the whole thing on a laptop?
Yeah, well, it's to be fair, the good thing is about building it on a laptop is if I can get it to run really, really well on this, I know for a fact it's going to run really well on people's absolute beasts. I was actually working 2 jobs at the same time as developing the game. Retail during the start of the pandemic, which was pretty wild, and also teaching at the local university too for game development. I'd feel guilty not working on the game. I'd have all these fantastic ideas while I was there. I'd be on the checkout just thinking about Slaughter League, and then by the time I get home, I'd just like, do I have to? Then, speaking to Freedom, we ended up deciding that it would be best if I worked full-time on the game. The first month or so, at least, I was having dreams about having to go back to work. I was having dreams that, I've got a shift soon, what am I doing? And I wake up, I was like, no, you aren't going to be back for, at all. It's great. Having the freedom to just be able to focus all of my mind onto the game, it's just going to make it so much better as a product than it would have been, because it's got love put into it now, it's got time, and it's undivided attention, I think is like the main thing. This game, it sounds corny, but it's changed my life in that way. Whereas no other game had before. I was still working the 2 jobs while building the mobile games, while building the Flash games, or whatever it might have been. Whereas this game has just flipped my life to where I want it to be. To finally be able to do this as a job is just insane. I love it.
This is definitely like a good, just relax, chill in the evening, play with buds, laugh at stupid stuff kind of game.
Oh, this is sick.
Yeah!
What is that? Oh, Jesus!
It's gonna be an absolute show.
When I feel bad and when I have bad times, I always go to games to disconnect and relax. I was really glad for having games that made me feel that way, and I want to be able to give at least one person the same opportunity I had with our game. How the game started is actually through university. We did the project as kind of like our last year project. We started at 6 people and just really like each other. We really worked well together and we had fun. That always created a good dynamic for us to work together. And so yeah, it was just friends doing a game together. Basically, the main concept is you run a cloud acre. You need to treat them, you need to be with them, make them feel better, and go out into the world. You need to explore, you need to gather different items, you need to cook meals. It feels good to let yourself get lost a little bit in that world. So there's definitely an exploration factor that it's also important. We knew we wanted to create a game that was fun but also relaxing, a game that had kind of like a safe space, having something that is positive and that gives you reassurance. And so from those 2 ideas, we started to look to games that we liked, and we started to create something similar to those games. It's relaxing and it gives people a place to disconnect. character customization is something that is very important to me, because you can create a character however you want it. The game makes a hard work of never asking you for your gender identity or limiting you in any way in that sense. And so that's something that it's important to me and that I was proud of, making work, because if you want to create a safe space, if you want everyone to feel good, you need to be able to create a character that doesn't put that pressure of gender on you, We want to make you feel better with this game. We want you to feel good.
Dark Deity is what happens when you take the character customization levels of an RPG and put it into a high strategy chess-like gameplay style. Each character has access to 9 different classes with branching weapon trees, with huge customization within the equipment. The entire focus is laid on you get to choose what your characters are good at and what they're bad at. It is very much a combination of genres. We're very tight-knit. That's what's so fun about making Dark Deity is that we are friends. The team is 5 friends. So like when we're on work calls, we're hanging out. It's not like, oh man, I have a meeting at 8 and sometimes we meet till like midnight, you know how it is. We all have very, very different sensibilities and opinions on the team. We like to be open about disagreeing and trying to find like the best solution that everyone can agree on. And we sort of argue, healthily argue most of the time. There's a certain level of maturity that it takes to be able to, talk to a friend and say, hey, I disagree with this. And it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with, the impact on the game or, the quality of the thing. And the fact that we have a full team that can really respect that is huge. An attitude that we've had that I think we all feel happy that we've stuck with is that we've been sort of uncompromising on trying to make everyone happy. It's been really hard to stick to our guns and say, take a mechanic that we think makes the game better, but not everyone's going to like it. Really committing to doing that and making the best game we can, and knowing that there's going to be some people that might like it less for that, even if it results in a better game. You can't please everybody, and in knowing that we're not going to please everybody, we're not compromising on any mechanics and watering them down. It's an art form that the industry is sort of losing, that way of artfully telling you, no, you have to do this another time, or you can't do this. And it's a bit of a push and pull. Finding that sweet spot in the progression where it's accessible, but we're not letting you just do anything you want with no, consequences or no real meat to your actions. You should have to choose a path at some point. You can play this thing so many times and have the gameplay feel different. There's going to be a lot of character bonds you don't see in 2, 3, 4 playthroughs maybe, and depending on if you're trying to see them all. Having it built to not only be replayed, but for you to really find out more about the world and figure out more about the gameplay as you play more is pretty exciting. To talk about just how much the scoping has changed, it's almost indescribable. We would have been happy with 1,000 people seeing it when we first started. Like, that would have been the biggest success ever. This is our first game. We want to keep making games. And if the quality of this is, our very first effort, and we've learned a lot through it, and, the next one's obviously going to come with a much higher level of expertise. It's grassroots. I think we're all excited. It's terrifying, but it's really exciting because, where we're at, we're all 23. 2 of us haven't even graduated college yet. To ship a game of this quality is pretty exciting.
Weakness has consequences.
Maybe I should raise my rates.
This would make for a fine tale.
You think you know everything, and then at some point you go, oh wait, we didn't know how to do that part. Well, I guess we got to figure it out. The four of us who started the studio worked in AAA. I left to go start making indie games. So we took that opportunity to kind of use our old friend group and our old expertise to start up the Wandering Band. And it was the first time that all of us felt complete creative control. That was fun. It was a challenge. It was also scary at the beginning. On a AAA team, you have technical artists and a dozen animators. I think the biggest challenge for us was trying to learn new skills and new parts of the game development process without ever doing it before. But I wouldn't trade it away. I think it's the creativity and the creative freedom is totally worth it.
You have an idea of what the vision of it looks like, but then it actually coming out the other side looking like that, it's pretty rare. I co-founded the studio with two of my friends. We had all worked at a company that did not end up turning out like any of us had hoped. So coming out of that experience, the three of us, we wanted to do something that felt a little bit more authentic to who we were and what we liked. Going into it, we knew that we had complementary skill sets. Having the kind of the core pillars of game design already there and having experience, we were able to cover a lot of bases. This is really the first time we've been able to pour so much of ourselves into the development of a game. I think I'm most proud of us being able to look at this game and know that we're hitting our own quality bar, especially for our first game.
The world was once wrought with chaos, and life as we know it was threatened, but nature is resilient and refused to be broken. You are here to survive, and you are here to find this wisdom. There is a stillness waiting for you. Go and find it. Retreat to NN.
Guards, take away this filthy peasant! What? This is the new governor? Well, pleased to meet you, Governor. That's quite a title for one of those greedy colonists, but sure, I'll play along. Your task is to set up a thriving colony. Well, stop bothering me and start expanding my empire. I'm guessing you've succeeded then. We will write it down as a win for now.
It took us a long time to get here. We put a lot of hard work into it.
Shipping games brings tough times, but we've also seen like success together.
Success for us is defined as being able to continue to do this because we really love it.
We want to be what we know and be the best at that.
Making something that people enjoy.